A millionaire man spotted 3 abandoned triplets on the street begging for food. The truth behind their story left him utterly stunned, almost paralyzed. Before we dive into this incredible tale, drop a comment below telling us where you're watching from. You're about to witness a journey that will truly touch your heart. A merciless blizzard struck Chicago, transforming downtown streets into a frozen wasteland filled with abandoned cars and roaring winds. Marcus Whitfield pressed his phone tightly to his ear as his Bentley inched through the storm. The Riverside acquisition documents need your signature by 5. Catherine Walsh, his executive assistant, reminded him over the speaker. At 52, Marcus had built Whitfield Industries from a modest investment firm into a billion-dollar empire. Success meant everything to him until this moment. "Sir, the engine's overheating," Henderson, his driver of 12 years, said apologetically. "I'll need to pull over." Marcus glanced up from his tablet, irritation briefly flashing across his weathered face. They stopped near a construction site in a rough part of downtown, a place Marcus would normally avoid. "How long will it take?" Marcus asked, checking his Felipe watch. "At least 30 minutes, sir. There's a problem with the radiator." Suddenly, movement caught Marcus's eye through the swirling snow. He saw 3 small figures huddled by a building's doorway, boys no older than 5 wearing thin jackets and worn sneakers. "Please, mister, we're really hungry," the smallest boy called out as Marcus stepped out of the car. Marcus froze. The boy's pale, desperate face, when yet somehow familiar, stirred something deep within him. Identical triplets, all with the same striking blue eyes and dark hair. "Where are your parents?" Marcus asked, kneeling despite his expensive suit, getting soaked. "Sarah and Robert left us," the middle boy whispered. "They said we cost too much money." The third boy, braver than the others, stepped forward. "I'm Caleb. This is Noah and Liam. Are you going to help us or just stand there?" There was something about Caleb's defiant courage that reminded Marcus of himself at that age. Before he could think, Marcus found himself saying, "Get in the car, all of you." As Henderson opened the door, Marcus noticed something that sent a chill through his veins. Each boy had an identical crescent-shaped birthmark on their left wrist, the same rare mark Marcus had carried since birth. The Whitfield mansion loomed against the darkening sky as the Bentley passed through wrought iron gates. Marcus watched the triplets press their faces against the windows, eyes wide with wonder. "You live in a castle," Noah whispered, awe filling his voice. "It's just a house," Marcus replied, though seeing it through their eyes made him realize how imposing his fortress of solitude truly was. Mrs. Patterson, his housekeeper of 15 years, appeared at the entrance. Her expression shifted from professional courtesy to shock as 3 small boys tumbled out of the car. "Sir?" she questioned, eyes darting between Marcus and the children. "Mrs. Patterson, meet Caleb, Noah, and Liam. They'll be staying with us temporarily. Please prepare the guest wing, adjoining rooms," Marcus instructed. Before she could respond, the mansion's front door burst open. Victoria Whitfield Stone, Marcus's younger sister and chief legal officer, strode in with designer heels clicking sharply on the marble floors. "Marcus, what the hell happened to the Riverside meeting? Catherine said you disappeared with some emergency." Her voice faltered as she spotted the triplets. "Not now," Marcus warned, guiding the boys toward Mrs. Patterson. "Have you lost your mind?" Victoria hissed once the children were out of earshot. "You can't just bring random street kids home like stray puppies." Marcus moved toward his study, knowing Victoria would follow. The wood-paneled room felt different somehow, as if the presence of 3 small boys had already changed the mansion's atmosphere. "I've contacted Jonathan Mitchell," Marcus said, pouring himself a scotch. "Emergency temporary guardianship papers are being prepared." Victoria slammed her perfectly manicured hand on his desk. "This is completely irrational. The board is already questioning your judgment after the Morrison deal fell through. This will confirm their worst fears about your stability." Marcus took a thoughtful sip. "There's something about these boys, Victoria. Something familiar." "What are you talking about?" "Look at their faces." "Really look," Marcus said, pulling out his phone to show a photo he'd discreetly taken in the car. "They all have the same birthmark I do. Victoria's expression hardened. That's ridiculous. You're just projecting because you never had children. This is some midlife crisis fantasy. A soft knock interrupted their argument. Mrs. Patterson appeared at the door. Sir, the children are asking for you. They seem frightened. Marcus found the triplets huddled together on a massive leather couch in the living room, clutching their small backpacks tightly. Caleb looked up at him with those piercing blue eyes. Daddy Marcus, he said quietly. Are you going to send us away too? Like the daddy before? The question struck Marcus hard. At that moment, looking at these three vulnerable boys who had somehow found their way to him, he made a promise that would change everything. No, he said firmly. You're home now. The morning sun streamed through the mansion's tall windows as Marcus observed the triplets eating breakfast with an unexpected politeness. Their manners were impeccable for children supposedly raised. On the streets, another puzzle that caught his attention. Can we go to school? Liam asked cautiously, wiping his mouth with a napkin. We like learning. Marcus had already made all the arrangements. Elite Academy, Chicago's most prestigious private school, had agreed to enroll them immediately after a generous donation and Marcus's personal assurance. Dr. Blackwell will see you first, Marcus explained. All students require a medical checkup. At Northwestern Memorial Hospital, Dr. Harrison Blackwell, a family friend and renowned pediatrician, examined each boy thoroughly, his brow furrowing deeper with every minute. Marcus, this is extraordinary, Dr. Blackwell whispered, privately. Identical triplets are extremely rare, maybe 1 in a million births, but identical triplets with matching birthmarks? He shook his head. I've never seen anything like this. What are you suggesting, Harrison? Marcus asked. Genetically speaking, these boys share your rare birthmark pattern. It indicates a very close biological connection. The words struck Marcus like a physical blow. 25 years ago, he had been engaged to Isabella Martinez, a passionate environmental lawyer, fiery-eyed and determined to change the world. His mother, Eleanor Whitfield, despised Isabella, branding her unworthy of the Whitfield legacy. Then Isabella disappeared. His mother claimed she left town after discovering she was pregnant, wanting nothing to do with Marcus or his fortune. The heartbreak nearly shattered him. Back at the mansion, Victoria cornered him again. The board wants answers, Marcus. You've missed 3 critical meetings this week. Whitfield Industries stock is starting to fluctuate. Handle it. That's why you're chief legal officer, he replied. This isn't like you, Victoria pressed. Marcus Whitfield wouldn't jeopardize his entire empire for 3 random children. Before Marcus could respond, Noah tugged at his sleeve. Daddy Marcus, who is that lady? Marcus glanced where Noah pointed, a portrait of Eleanor Whitfield, hung prominently in the hallway. His mother had passed away 2 years ago, taking her secrets with her. Caleb joined them, staring intently at the painting. That's the kind lady who used to visit Mama Sarah, he said. She always brought us toys and told us stories about a son who worked too much. Marcus's world tilted. You knew my mother? She said her name was Eleanor, Liam added innocently. She told us we were special boys and that someday we'd understand why. The implications crashed over Marcus like a tsunami. His mother had known about these children, known and hidden them from him for 5 years. Marcus paced his study at dawn, unable to sleep. The revelation of Eleanor's connection to the triplets shattered everything he thought he knew about his family. He reached for his phone and dialed Maxwell Sterling, Chicago's most discreet private investigator. I need you to find everything on 3 boys, Caleb, Noah, and Liam. And I need it yesterday, Marcus said without hesitation. When Sterling answered, he said, Already working on it, Mr. Whitfield. Word travels fast in my business. I'll have preliminary findings by tonight. After hanging up, Marcus pulled out a leather photo album he hadn't opened in 20 years. There she was, Isabella Martinez at 23, laughing at Navy Pier, her dark hair catching the sunlight. She had been brilliant and passionate about environmental law, dreaming of saving the world one lawsuit at a time. His mother had called her a gold digger and beneath their station, but Isabella never cared about his money. She loved him for who he was beneath the billions. The memory of their last fight overwhelmed him. Isabella had been acting strange, secretive. When confronted, she was evasive. 3 days later, Eleanor told him Isabella had left town pregnant and wanted nothing to do with the Whitfield name. Daddy Marcus. Caleb's voice interrupted his memories. Can we paint today? Marcus looked up to see all 3 boys in the doorway still in their dinosaur pajamas. Paint? We like art, Noah explained. Mama Sarah said we got it from someone special. Mrs. Patterson appeared behind them. Sir, I found art supplies in the storage room. The boys are quite talented. Marcus watched them paint throughout the morning, amazed by their natural skill. Each boy painted with the same fluid style and intuitive grasp of color and form that Isabella had possessed. You paint like someone I used to know, Marcus murmured, studying Liam's watercolor landscape. Really? Liam beamed. Mama, Sarah said our first mommy was an artist. She showed us a picture once but then hid it. That evening, Marcus attempted something unfamiliar. A family dinner. No business calls, no tablets. Just conversation with 3 5-year-olds who asked surprisingly sophisticated questions about his work. What's an acquisition? Caleb asked, carefully cutting his steak. It's when one company buys another company, Marcus explained. Why would you want to buy someone else's company? Noah wondered. Marcus paused, realizing he'd never thought about the deeper purpose. To make them stronger, I suppose. To create something better together. Like a family, Liam asked innocently. The simple question hit Marcus harder than any boardroom challenge ever had. His phone buzzed with a text from Sterling. Found them. Sarah and Robert Chen, former foster parents. You need to see this immediately. Marcus excused himself and called Sterling back. They've been missing for 6 months, Mr. Whitfield, Sterling reported grimly. Neighbors say they packed up suddenly in the middle of the night, left behind the 3 children they'd cared for since birth. The crystal ballroom of the Palmer House Hotel glittered with Chicago's financial elite. Crystal chandeliers cast prismatic light over tables adorned with white orchids. The annual Children's Charity Gala was the social event of the season, and Marcus's attendance was expected. Are we dressed properly? Caleb asked, adjusting his miniature bow tie as they approached the hotel entrance. All 3 boys wore custom-tailored tuxedos that made them look like tiny gentlemen. Perfectly, Marcus assured them, though his own nerves were frayed. Bringing the triplets to such a high-profile event would fuel gossip for months. Inside, conversations paused as Marcus entered with a boy on each side. Photographers' flashbulbs immediately illuminated the night, capturing the unexpected sight of Chicago's most eligible bachelor, accompanied by 3 identical children. Whitfield's lost his mind. Marcus overheard someone whisper behind crystal flutes of champagne. Theodore Blackstone, Marcus's chief competitor and longtime rival, approached with exaggerated warmth. Reed, I heard you've become a family man overnight. Tell me, is this some new corporate social responsibility initiative? Adopt a child for better publicity? Something cold and protective surged in Marcus's chest. Actually, Blackstone, it's called basic human decency. You should try it sometime. Blackstone's smile faltered. Just curious what inspired this sudden paternal instinct. Before Marcus could reply, Noah tugged at his sleeve. Daddy Marcus, that man seems mean. Should we leave? The innocence in Noah's voice and his instinctive protectiveness melted hearts. Nearby, several society ladies whispered approvingly about the boy's manners. During dinner, the triplets sat perfectly, using proper utensils and speaking politely to adults who questioned them. They're remarkably well-behaved, commented Judge Patricia Morrison, who had been skeptical at first. We had good teachers, Liam replied diplomatically. As the evening progressed, Marcus found himself relaxing. These boys, wherever they'd come from, belonged at his side. The realization struck him with surprising force. He was proud to be their father, biological or not. Near the end of the evening, an elderly woman with silver hair and kind eyes approached their table. Margaret Holmes, widow of a federal judge and Chicago society matriarch, had known the Whitfield family for decades. Marcus, dear, she said warmly, then paused as she studied the triplets closely. Her expression shifted to one of recognition and concern. Mrs. Holmes, Marcus greeted her respectfully. She leaned closer, lowering her voice to a whisper, meant only for him. They have Isabella Martinez's eyes, Marcus. Exactly her eyes. Where did you find them? The ballroom seemed to spin as the weight of her words sank in. Marcus barely slept after Margaret Holmes's revelation. At dawn, he called Maxwell Sterling, demanding an immediate meeting. By 8 a.m., they sat in Marcus's study while the triplets played outside with Mrs. Patterson. Sarah Chen worked as a nurse at Chicago General Hospital from 1998 to 2004, Sterling reported, sliding a personnel file across the desk. Maternity ward specifically. She left abruptly in January 2004. Marcus's blood ran cold. January 2004, exactly when Isabella would have given birth. There's more, Sterling continued. I pulled hospital employment records. Eleanor Whitfield made significant charitable donations to Chicago General during that exact period, enough to influence certain policies. Marcus studied Sarah Chen's photograph, a middle-aged woman with a kind face, the type who would dedicate her life to caring for others. Why would she take the boys? Marcus asked. Money, Sterling said bluntly. Bank records show regular deposits into Sarah's account for 5 years. $5,000 monthly from an offshore account traced back to Eleanor Whitfield's estate lawyers. The revelation struck Marcus like a punch. His mother had been paying Sarah to raise his children while letting him believe Isabella had abandoned him. What happened to the payments? They stopped when Eleanor died 2 years ago. Sarah and Robert Chen tried contacting the estate lawyers demanding continued support. When refused, they abandoned the boys rather than face bankruptcy. Marcus's hands trembled as he reached for a locked drawer he hadn't opened since Eleanor's death. Inside were documents she'd marked personal and confidential. Birth, certificates, medical records, legal papers he'd never examined closely. There it was, a death certificate for triplets born January 15, 2004, at Chicago General Hospital, signed by Dr. Benjamin Crawford, now retired. The mother's name had been whited out, but Marcus could see faint ink beneath. Isabella Martinez. Find Dr. Crawford, Marcus ordered. I need to speak with him immediately. A soft knock interrupted them. Caleb stood at the doorway, his face serious beyond his years. Daddy Marcus, can we ask you something important? Marcus quickly closed the files. Of course, buddy. All 3 boys entered. Noah carried a drawing he'd made, 5 stick figures. 3 small ones, 1 tall man, and 1 woman with long dark hair. We dreamed about our first mommy again, Noah said quietly. She was crying and calling for someone named Marcus. Liam stepped forward. Was she calling for you, Daddy Marcus? Were you friends with our first mommy? The innocent question shattered Marcus's heart. Looking at their hopeful faces, so like Isabella's eyes, he made a decision that would change everything. Yes, he whispered. I loved your first mommy very much. Sterling's phone buzzed. He glanced at it, then looked up grimly. Dr. Crawford agreed to see you. But Marcus, he sounded terrified. Dr. Benjamin Crawford lived in a modest retirement home on Chicago's South Side, a stark contrast to the luxury Marcus was accustomed to. The 78-year-old former physician answered the door with shaking hands, his face pale with decades of buried guilt. Mr. Whitfield, he whispered, glancing nervously down the hallway. I wondered when this day would come. In his sparse apartment, surrounded by medical journals and faded family photos, Crawford poured himself a trembling glass of whiskey before facing Marcus. Your mother was a formidable woman, he began, voice barely audible. She offered me $500,000 to declare those babies stillborn. Marcus felt the room spin. They were alive. 3 healthy, beautiful, perfect boys. Crawford's eyes filled with tears. I signed false death certificates while Eleanor's people took them away. I told myself they'd have better lives, but I knew it was wrong. What happened to Isabella? Crawford's face crumpled. Eleanor orchestrated everything. She had evidence planted in Isabella's apartment, stolen client funds, forged documents. Isabella was arrested the day after giving birth, charged with embezzling from the environmental law firm where she worked. Marcus gripped the armrest of his chair. She was innocent. Completely. But Eleanor had judges, prosecutors, even Isabella's own lawyer in her pocket. The trial was a sham. Isabella was sentenced to 25 years for financial crimes she never committed. The magnitude of his mother's betrayal crashed over Marcus. Eleanor hadn't just separated him from Isabella, she'd destroyed Isabella's life, stolen their children, and let him believe he'd been abandoned. "Where is she now?" Marcus demanded. "Illinois Correctional Center. She's been there for 20 years. 20 years for crimes your mother orchestrated." Marcus stood abruptly, pacing to the window. Outside, children played in a small courtyard, their laughter a stark contrast to the devastation unfolding in the room. "The boys were given to Sarah Chen," Crawford continued. "Eleanor paid her to raise them quietly, away from Chicago society. Sarah believed she was helping orphaned children." Marcus's phone rang. Mrs. Patterson was calling from the mansion. "Sir, you need to come home immediately," she said, panic in her voice. "It's Noah. He's burning up with fever and asking for you." Marcus raced back to find Noah delirious in bed, his small body racked with convulsions. Caleb and Liam refused to leave their brother's side. As paramedics arrived at Northwestern Memorial Hospital, Dr. Blackwell emerged from Noah's room with grave concern. "Marcus, Noah's fever spiked to 105 degrees. We're running tests, but his symptoms are consistent with severe trauma response. Sometimes children's bodies manifest emotional shock physically." As Marcus sat vigil beside Noah's bed, watching his son fight for stability, one thought consumed him. Isabella had lost 20 years with their children, locked away for crimes she never committed, while he'd lived in luxury, unaware. Tomorrow he would begin the fight to bring her home. Noah's fever broke after 2 agonizing days, but the ordeal changed everything. Marcus sat in his study, watching the 3 boys play quietly in the garden, their bond even stronger after nearly losing each other. Victoria entered without knocking, her usual composure cracked. "Marcus, we need to talk about Mother." "I know everything, Victoria." Marcus's voice was ice cold. "Dr. Crawford told me about the conspiracy, the false death certificates, Isabella's frame-up." Victoria's face went pale. She closed the door and leaned against it. "You don't understand the full picture." "Then explain it." Victoria moved to the bar, pouring herself a large brandy with shaking hands. "Mother discovered Isabella was pregnant a week before you planned to propose. She hired private investigators, found Isabella's vulnerabilities, student loans, her mother's medical bills." Marcus said grimly, "Eleanor used her compassion against her." "Mother believed Isabella was only with you for money. When Isabella refused Eleanor's buyout offer, $500,000 to disappear, Mother decided to eliminate the threat permanently." Marcus stood towering over his sister. "Those are my sons out there, Victoria. Eleanor stole 20 years of their lives, 20 years of Isabella's life." "I didn't know the babies survived until last week," Victoria whispered. "I thought they really died. Mother told me Isabella had a breakdown after losing them and confessed to the embezzlement. You knew Isabella was innocent and said nothing." Victoria's composure finally shattered. "I was 25. Mother controlled everything. Our trust funds, inheritance, futures. She said Isabella would destroy the company and ruin our family name." Marcus's phone buzzed with a text from Sterling. "Isabella Martinez, inmate D-Bear 47291, Illinois Correctional Center. Eligible for parole review in 2029. Model prisoner. Tutors other inmates in legal advocacy." 5 more years, Marcus said, showing Victoria the message. 5 more years before she's even eligible for parole. Victoria looked at the information, then at Marcus. "The Thompson & Associates law firm specializes in wrongful conviction cases. They've overturned dozens of false imprisonments. Why are you helping me now?" Victoria glanced toward the window, where the triplets were building a fort with fallen branches. "Because those boys deserve their mother. And because I've spent 20 years living with Mother's lies." Marcus's phone rang. Jonathan Mitchell, his corporate lawyer, sounded urgent. Marcus, I've been reviewing Eleanor's estate files like you requested. There are sealed records from 2004. Court documents marked confidential. I need your authorization to open them. Do it, Marcus commanded. At Illinois Correctional Center, someone answered the phone. Someone's been asking about Isabella. Martinez's case. They want to know if you're planning to visit. Marcus looked at his sons through the window, then at Victoria's guilt-ridden face. Tell them I'll be there tomorrow. The accident happened so fast Marcus barely had time to react. Caleb had been climbing the old oak tree in the mansion's garden when a branch snapped, sending him crashing 12 feet to the ground. The sickening thud of his small body hitting the stone pathway would haunt Marcus forever. Call 911, Marcus shouted to Mrs. Patterson as he knelt beside Caleb's motionless form. Noah and Liam stood frozen, tears streaming down their faces. Is he dead? Liam whispered. Like our first, Mommy. No, Marcus said firmly, though Caleb's stillness terrified him. He's going to be okay. At Northwestern Memorial Hospital, Dr. Blackwell emerged from surgery with a grave expression. Marcus, Caleb has a severe head injury and internal bleeding. We've stabilized him, but he requires specialized neurosurgery. Then get the best neurosurgeon in the country, Marcus demanded. Dr. Elizabeth Chen from Johns Hopkins is flying in tonight, Dr. Blackwell replied hesitantly. But Marcus, he continued, we need a complete family medical history. Any genetic conditions, blood disorders, previous surgeries. Without information from the biological parents, we're operating blind. Marcus felt the walls closing in. His mother was in prison, wrongfully convicted. I need to contact her immediately. Dr. Blackwell looked confused. Marcus, these children are your biological sons, aren't they? The genetic markers, the birthmarks, their facial features. We need definitive proof. Marcus interrupted. Emergency DNA testing. As medical technicians drew blood samples from Marcus and the triplets, Victoria arrived with Jonathan Mitchell and a team of lawyers. We have the sealed court records, Mitchell announced. Eleanor's conspiracy was even more extensive than they'd imagined. She hadn't just framed Isabella, she had bribed half the judicial system. Dr. Blackwell reappeared with preliminary test results. Marcus, there's no doubt these boys are your biological sons. The DNA match is 99.97% certain. The revelation should have felt triumphant, but with Caleb fighting for his life, Marcus felt only desperate urgency. I need to see Isabella, he told Victoria. Tonight. The warden agreed to an emergency compassionate visit. As Marcus prepared to leave for the prison, Noah grabbed his hand. Daddy Marcus, will you tell our first mommy about Caleb? She should know her baby is hurt. The innocence in Noah's voice shattered Marcus's remaining composure. For 20 years, Isabella had believed her children were dead. Tonight she would learn they were alive, and that one of them was fighting for his life. I'll tell her everything, Marcus promised. The DNA results arrived while Marcus kept vigil beside Caleb's hospital bed. Dr. Patricia Hoffman, head of genetics at Northwestern Memorial, delivered them personally. Mr. Whitfield, these are the most conclusive paternity results I've ever processed, she said, handing him the official report. There's a 97% probability that you are the biological father of all 3 boys. The genetic markers are unmistakable. Marcus studied the scientific data. 20 years of questions finally answered with mathematical certainty. His phone buzzed with a call from Jonathan Mitchell. Marcus, Thompson, and Associates have been working nonstop. We've uncovered a mountain of evidence proving Isabella's innocence, Mitchell reported. Bank records show Eleanor transferred $2.3 million to various accounts between 2003 and 2004. Judges, prosecutors, court clerks, even Isabella's original defense attorney were all paid off. How deep did this go? Marcus asked, gripping the phone tighter. Judge Patterson, who sentenced Isabella, received a new vacation home. Prosecutor Williams got his son into Harvard with a mysterious scholarship. Isabella's lawyer, David Chen, suddenly paid off all his gambling debts. What about the evidence against Isabella? Completely fabricated? The financial documents were created by a forgery expert Eleanor hired. The missing client funds were transferred to Eleanor's offshore accounts, then moved again to make them untraceable. Dr. Blackwell interrupted with an update on Caleb. The surgery was successful, but he's asking for his mother. He keeps saying he needs to see his first mommy. Marcus made his decision. Mitchell filed for immediate exoneration based on prosecutorial misconduct and falsified evidence. I want Isabella released within the week. Marcus, the legal system doesn't move that fast. Then make it move faster. Use every contact, every favor, every dollar necessary. Thompson and Associates has unlimited resources for this case. Victoria approached with another revelation. I found Mother's private safe. There are letters. Marcus, letters Isabella wrote to you from prison, begging you to believe in her innocence. Eleanor intercepted them all. Marcus opened the first letter dated 6 months after Isabella's sentencing. Her handwriting, once so familiar, was shaky with desperation. My dearest Marcus, I know you must hate me, but I swear on our unborn children's graves that I never stole that money. Your mother offered me a fortune to leave you, but I chose love. Now I'm paying the price for that choice. If you ever loved me, please help me prove my innocence. 20 years of letters, 20 years of Isabella believing Marcus had abandoned her. Dr. Chen from Johns Hopkins emerged from Caleb's room. He's stable and asking for you, but Mr. Whitfield, he needs to see his mother. The trauma response won't fully resolve until the family is complete. Marcus looked at his reflection in the hospital window. Tomorrow, he would see Isabella for the first time in 20 years. He would tell her their sons were alive, that one was fighting for his life, and that he'd spent 2 decades living a lie built on his mother's cruelty. Illinois Correctional Center stood like a fortress against the gray October sky. Marcus had faced hostile corporate takeovers, billion-dollar negotiations, and ruthless competitors. But nothing had prepared him for walking through those prison gates to see the woman he'd never stopped loving. Isabella Martinez sat across from him in the visiting room, separated by reinforced glass. 20 years had carved lines around her eyes, but they were still the same deep brown that had captured his heart. Her dark hair, now streaked with silver, was pulled back severely. She wore standard prison gray, but her posture remained proud, unbroken. She stared at him for a full minute before picking up the phone. You look older, she said simply, her voice controlled but trembling slightly. Isabella. Marcus's voice cracked. I know the truth about everything. Her expression hardened. What truth? That your mother destroyed my life while you did nothing to stop her? I didn't know, Marcus said desperately. I believed you were dead. Eleanor told me you'd run away after the babies died. I've lived 20 years thinking you'd abandoned me. Isabella's facade crumbled. The babies didn't die. Marcus pulled out his phone, showing her recent photos of the triplets at the hospital. Isabella's hand flew to her mouth, tears streaming down her face as she saw Caleb, Noah, and Liam for the first time. They're beautiful, she whispered. They look like you, like us. They're our sons. Isabella. Eleanor had Dr. Crawford falsify their death certificates, then paid Sarah Chen to raise them in secret. When Eleanor died, the payments stopped, and Sarah abandoned them. Isabella pressed her palm against the glass. 20 years I've mourned dead children. 20 years I believed you turned your back on me. Marcus matched her gesture, their hands separated by cold glass. I received your letters yesterday. Eleanor intercepted everyone. I never knew you were writing to me, begging for help. You would have helped me. I would have moved heaven and earth. I love you, Isabella. I never stopped loving you. Isabella broke down completely. I wrote you hundreds of letters. I told you about the dreams where I held our babies, about the nightmares where you called me a thief. I begged you to remember who I was, who we were together. Marcus's voice was thick with emotion. One of our sons was injured yesterday. Caleb. He's asking for his mother, his first mommy. He needs you. They all need you. How can I be their mother after missing their entire lives. Because love doesn't have a statute of limitations. Because they've been waiting for you their whole lives, even without knowing it. Isabella studied the photos again, memorizing every detail. Tell me about them, please. Marcus spent the next hour describing their personalities. Caleb's leadership, Noah's artistic soul, Liam's gentle wisdom. Isabella laughed and cried. 20 years of maternal love pouring out at once. My legal team is filing for immediate exoneration, Marcus said as visiting time ended. You'll be home within days. Isabella looked at him with wonder. Home. With me. With our sons, where you always belonged. The courtroom of the Illinois Supreme Court buzzed with unprecedented energy in just 72 hours. Marcus had assembled the most powerful legal team in the country. Thompson and Associates had filed emergency motions, while Marcus's own attorneys worked to expose Eleanor Whitfield's conspiracy. Your Honor, lead attorney Sarah Thompson addressed Chief Justice Morrison. We present overwhelming evidence of prosecutorial misconduct, judicial corruption, and systematic fraud spanning 20 years. Judge Morrison reviewed them. Mountain of documentation, bank transfers, forged documents, recorded conversations. Eleanor had stupidly preserved Dr. Crawford's full confession had been the final nail in the conspiracy's coffin. Marcus sat in the gallery, his phone buzzing with updates from the hospital. Caleb was recovering well. Asking constantly when first mommy would visit, Noah and Liam had created a welcome home book filled with drawings and letters. Prosecutor James Walsh, representing the state, stood reluctantly. Your Honor, after reviewing the evidence presented, the state of Illinois moves to dismiss all charges against Isabella Martinez. We recommend immediate exoneration with full pardons and compensation for wrongful imprisonment. The gavel fell. Case dismissed. Ms. Martinez is hereby exonerated of all charges. The court apologizes for this grave miscarriage of justice. Isabella, brought from prison in civilian clothes Marcus had provided, collapsed in tears. As the shackles were removed, 20 years of wrongful imprisonment ended with the sound of that gavel outside the courthouse. Media swarmed. Marcus made a brief statement. Isabella Martinez was the victim of an elaborate conspiracy orchestrated by my late mother. Today justice has finally been served my family, and I request privacy as we heal from decades of separation. At Northwestern Memorial Hospital, Dr. Blackwell had prepared a private wing for the reunion. Caleb's made remarkable progress, he reported. It's as if knowing his mother was coming gave him the strength to fight. Marcus had spent the morning preparing, the boys showing them current photos of Isabella, explaining that she looked different after years in prison, but that their love for them had never changed. Will she remember us? Liam asked worriedly. We were very little when she went away. She's carried you in her heart every single day, Marcus assured him. Victoria appeared with legal documents. The state is offering Isabella $12 million in compensation, she reported, and Marcus, I've established a foundation in her name for wrongfully convicted women, my way of trying to make amends. As afternoon arrived, Marcus felt a mix of anticipation and terror. In minutes he would witness the reunion between Isabella and the sons she'd believed were dead for 20 years. His phone rang. Jonathan Mitchell, calling Marcus. Isabella's release papers are finalized. She's free to leave immediately. Bring her here, Marcus said simply. Bring her home. Marcus transformed the mansion's sunroom into a sanctuary for the reunion. Mrs. Patterson filled it with soft lighting, comfortable seating, and the boys' artwork displayed prominently on easels. 20 years of separation woodened in this room. Is our first mommy really coming today? Noah asked for the 10th time, carefully arranging the welcome book he'd created. Each page contained a drawing and a message. Dear Mommy, I missed you even though I didn't know you. Marcus knelt beside his son, his heart full of nervous anticipation. Yes, she'll be here any minute. Remember what we talked about? She might cry when she sees you. Those will be happy. Tears. Caleb, still weak from his surgery but determined to be present, sat proudly in his wheelchair. Will she know which one of us is which? He worried. We look exactly the same. Mothers have a special way of knowing their children. Marcus assured him, though. He wondered the same thing. Liam clutched small stuffed elephant he'd chosen as a gift for Isabella. What if she doesn't like us anymore? We're bigger now and maybe different. Marcus pulled all three boys close. Love doesn't disappear, buddy, it just gets stronger. At 3:00 p.m. Marcus's phone rang. Jonathan Mitchell's voice was gentle. She's here. Marcus Isabella is at the front gate. Through the window, Marcus saw the black sedan pull up the circular drive. His hands trembled as he watched Isabella step out wearing a simple blue dress Victoria had brought to the courthouse. She looked fragile but determined, carrying herself with the same quiet strength that had first captured his heart. Mrs. Patterson met Isabella at the door, embracing her warmly. "Miss Isabella, welcome home. The boys have been waiting their entire lives for this moment." Isabella's voice was barely a whisper. Do they want to see me?" From the sunroom came the sound of excited whispers and shuffling feet. Marcus appeared in the hallway, and for a moment, he and Isabella simply looked at each other, two people whose lives had been shattered by cruelty but who had found their way back to love. "They're nervous," Marcus said softly, "but they've been asking about you every day since they learned you existed." Isabella's hands shook as she smoothed her dress. "I don't know how to be their mother. I missed everything. First steps, first words, bedtime stories. You start now," Marcus said, taking her hand. "You start with love and the rest will follow." From behind the sunroom door came Caleb's voice. "Daddy." "Marcus, is that Harris, our first mommy here?" Isabella's breath caught. "They call me first mommy." Marcus smiled. "It's their way of honoring both you and the woman who raised them." Isabella straightened her shoulders, drawing on the strength that had sustained her through 20 years of imprisonment. "I'm ready." Marcus opened the sunroom door, and time seemed to stop. Isabella stood in the doorway, her eyes immediately locking onto three identical boys who rose from their seats in perfect synchronization. 20 years of separation, condensed into a single breathtaking moment. "My babies," Isabella whispered, her voice breaking as tears streamed down her face. Caleb, despite his weakness, pushed himself up from his wheelchair. "You're really our first mommy." Isabella nodded, unable to speak, her hands pressed to her heart as she studied each face the eyes she'd dreamed about, the smiles she'd imagined, the sons she'd mourned as dead. Liam stepped forward, first clutching his stuffed elephant. "We made this for you," he said, softly holding out the welcome book. "We didn't know you were real, but we always hoped." Isabella knelt to their level, accepting the book with trembling hands as she flipped through pages of drawings and messages she saw herself reflected in. Their artwork, a woman with long dark hair, always smiling, always reaching toward three small boys. "You drew me even though you'd never seen me?" she marveled. "We saw you in our dreams," Noah explained. Matter-of-factly, "You were always trying to find us." Something magical happened. Then Caleb reached out tentatively and touched Isabella's face, tracing the lines around her eyes. "You have sad marks," observed. "Were you crying for us?" "Every day," Isabella admitted. "Every single day for 20 years. Without hesitation, all three boys moved closer, and Isabella wrapped them in her arms, her first embrace with her son since they were newborns. The fit was perfect, natural, as if 20 years had been mere moments. "You smell like flowers," Liam murmured against her shoulder. "And you feel like home," Noah added. Marcus watched from the doorway, his heart full to bursting. Mrs. Patterson stood beside him, dabbing her eyes with a handkerchief. Even Victoria, who had arrived quietly, seemed moved by the reunion's pure emotion. "I have so many questions," Isabella said, pulling back to study each boy's face. "Tell me everything, your favorite colors, your dreams. What makes you laugh?" "We like art like you did," Caleb announced proudly. "And we're really good at math like Daddy Marcus. Daddy Marcus teaches us about business at dinner." Noah added, "He says we're natural leaders." Isabella looked up at Marcus, her eyes shining with gratitude and something deeper. "He's taken wonderful care of you. He loves us," Liam said simply, "and he never stopped looking for you." As the afternoon melted into evening, the family settled into easy conversation. Isabella marveled at their intelligence, their kindness, their resilience. The boys showed her their rooms, their art projects, their favorite books. During a quiet moment, Marcus found Isabella alone on the terrace, staring at the sunset. "Thank you," she said without turning around, "for finding the truth, for bringing me home to them." Marcus moved beside her. "Isabella, I know we can't get back the 20 years we lost, but maybe we can build something new, something beautiful." He knelt on one knee, pulling out a ring, the same ring he'd planned to give her 25 years ago. "Will you marry me? Will you help me give our sons the family they deserve. Isabella stared at the ring through tears. The same princess-cut diamond Marcus had chosen 25 years ago, when their future seemed limitless. The sunset painted the sky in shades of gold and pink, nature itself celebrating this moment of redemption. Yes, she whispered, then louder. Yes, Marcus. 1,000 times, yes. As he slipped the ring onto her finger, 3 small faces appeared at the terrace door the triplets had been watching, and their whoops of joy echoed across the mansion grounds. Are you going to be our real mommy and daddy now? Caleb asked, rushing forward with his brothers. We already are, Isabella replied, pulling them close. Love makes families, not just papers. Months later, the garden of the Whitfield mansion bloomed with white roses and the laughter of children. Isabella stood at the altar in a simple cream dress, radiant with happiness she'd thought lost forever. Marcus, handsome in his charcoal suit, couldn't take his eyes off her. Caleb, Noah, and Liam served as ring-bearers, walking down the petal-strewn aisle with the confidence of children who finally knew where they belonged. Judge Morrison, who had exonerated Isabella, officiated the ceremony with tears in her eyes. 20 years ago, injustice tried to destroy this family. She said to the intimate gathering, "Today love has triumphed. Completely." Victoria stood as maid of honor. Her own redemption journey reflected in her support for the unions. She once would have opposed. Mrs. Patterson wept openly as she watched her employer become a complete man through love and fatherhood. I promise to love you through whatever comes, Marcus vowed. I promise to never let anyone separate us again. I promise to make up for every lost moment, Isabella replied. I promise to fill our home with the love we always dreamed of. As they kissed, sealing 25 years of love, tested by cruelty but never destroyed, the triplets cheered loudest of all 1 year. Later, Marcus and Isabella stood before the Illinois state capitol as Governor Williams signed the Isabella Martinez Wrongful Conviction Prevention Act into law. The legislation, funded by a $50 million foundation, would provide legal advocacy for women facing questionable prosecutions. Mommy, you're famous, Liam observed, watching reporters document the ceremony. We're all famous for love, Isabella replied, running her fingers through his hair. The family had settled into beautiful rhythms. Isabella worked part-time as a legal advocate while homeschooling the boys in the afternoons. Marcus had restructured his business to prioritize family time, discovering that a full heart made him a better leader that evening as they tucked the triplets into their beds. Caleb asked the question that still amazed Marcus. Will you tell us the story about how you found each other again? It begins with 3 brave boys, Marcus started, who were lost but never forgotten. And a mommy who never stopped believing, Isabella continued. And a daddy who never stopped searching. And it ends with everyone finding exactly where they belonged, Noah finished sleepily. Later, Marcus and Isabella sat in their study, surrounded by family photos that now filled every surface. Pictures of birthday parties, school plays, family vacations, all the moments they'd been denied now being created with joyful abundance. Do you ever wonder what would have happened if we'd found each other sooner? Isabella asked, curled against Marcus's side. Marcus kissed the top of her head. I think we found each other exactly when we were meant to. Our boys needed to be strong enough to survive what they survived. We needed to be wise enough to appreciate what we'd almost lost. Through the window, they could see the garden where their love story had begun. Its second chapter, where 3 abandoned boys had found their parents, where a conspiracy built on hatred had crumbled. Before, the power of truth, love, Marcus reflected, was indeed the strongest force in the universe. It could survive 20 years of separation, overcome the cruelest deceptions, and transform the deepest wounds into the foundation for unshakable joy. Their family was living proof that some love stories are worth waiting for, no matter how long the wait or how dark the valley between heartbreak and healing.